WrestleMania, for almost every wrestler under the sun, is the event to work towards. Even as the field has grown over the years, the show of shows is still considered the top of the top, and if you get an opportunity there, you work just a little bit harder in order to have your name written into those history books. It's one of the reasons CM Punk walked out the company. After all, he was livid he was never given what he deemed a rightful main event spot. Just because it is so must-see doesn't mean that everybody always hits a home run, though. Be it that a certain performer isn't happy with the spot they've been given or has their mind on other things, not every Mania contest is a smash hit, because that's not how life works. I'm Simon from What Culture, and this is 10 wrestlers who didn't turn up for WrestleMania. Number 10, Batista. Batista is underrated. Never truly given his due, he started an awesome WrestleMania run at number 21 when he won his first World Championship from Triple H, and then 2 years later he stole the show when he faced The Undertaker. That match was far better than anybody thought, and it should have been the main event, something that both the Animal and the Dead Man used to fuel them forward. They felt they had been hard done by, and based on what they achieved, they probably were right. This is why it was strange that at Mania 24, Big Dave was paired with Umaga. The Samoan wrecking machine was a great character, but constant losses to the big boys had taken away his allure. It didn't really make sense why Batista would be put in a random match against him. The build was all over the place, and it seemed as if WWE simply didn't have ideas for those two, so pushed them together. While it certainly wasn't intentional, this ended up more as a TV scrap than one you'd expect at the biggest pay-per-view there is. It wasn't bad, but it was kind of just there, and by the time Batista had hit a slightly awkward Batista bomb to win the thing, it had nothing to make it stand out. A clashing of stars, you could say. This won't be on anybody's must-see Mania lists. Number 9, Shawn Michaels. And in this case, when I say didn't turn up, I mean literally. There's a reason the Heartbreak Kid is called Mr. WrestleMania, but if he doesn't make it to the actual event, then it's all for naught, and that was the case at WrestleMania 13. The original plan was to have Bret Hart vs. Shawn Michaels 2, which would have allowed the Hitman to get his win back from a year earlier. When we got here though, HBK decided he didn't want to do this and missed the pay-per-view entirely because of a knee injury. Problem is, there was a lot of raised eyebrows around this, suggesting it wasn't as bad as Shawn was making out, and that this was mostly done so he didn't have to return the favour. It meant plans were changed and Michaels forfeited the title instead, all the while explaining that he had lost his smile. I hope he looked under the couch. The real kicker was that 12 months later he did turn up for WrestleMania and performed even more hurt than he claimed to be at this point. Shawn did the honors too, with rumours that The Undertaker had promised to knock him out if he didn't, and it was the start of the Stone Cold Steve Austin boom. If you're looking for controversy though, you could do far worse than starting here. You won't believe it. Number 8, The Ultimate Warrior. The Ultimate Warrior did not get paid by the hour. He was happy to roll in and then roll out, which explains what happened at WrestleMania 12. Pitched up against Triple H of all people, who had been pegged as a young up-and-comer by WWE, the Warrior decided that in no universe would this ham and egger be able to have a competitive match with him, so he changed the plans. Instead of a good old-fashioned back and forth, he would drop the future King of Kings in less than 2 minutes and also no-sell his pedigree. To his credit, Triple H has said in interviews since he saw it as an honor to step in the ring with the Hall of Famer, but he must have been a little bit pissed. He was being treated as if he was nothing. There may have been a bit more truth in this self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior DVD that WWE released before the two made up. On that, Trips claimed that the Ultimate One was a total unprofessional. So there you go. Number 7, Rey Mysterio. WrestleMania 21 had 2 matches fans couldn't wait for. A dream encounter between Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, and also another go-around as Rey Mysterio took on Eddie Guerrero. If you've ever seen their WCW Classic, you know why people were excited, and even if they delivered at their worst, it would still be better than most people's best. Unfortunately, one slight wardrobe malfunction stole away from the moment. It was still excellent because the pair was so good, but whoever had made Mysterio's mask hadn't done the best job, as clearly it didn't fit properly. Spending most of the match trying to adjust it and stop it from flying off his face and ruining his gimmick became a major distraction as we all tried to figure out what was going on. Essentially, anytime Guerrero went for a move, Rey sold his mask rather than his body, and it was really odd. So it was Mysterio's headgear that didn't turn up as opposed to Rey himself, and thankfully this never happened again. I can imagine no one was more frustrated than the luchador himself. It was like he was having a fight with his own damn mask. Number 6, Nathan Jones. If you want to find someone built by Vince McMahon in his dreams, go and look at Nathan Jones. Tall and jacked, it looked like he had fallen out of the CEO's brain and thankfully stumbled into a WWE ring. The man was massive. The company was so behind him too, they stuck Jones with The Undertaker, hoping that all that experience would rub off. It's why at WrestleMania 19, the two were going to pair up to take on the team of The Big Show and A-Train. Those behemoths could bump around for Nathan, making him a star in the process. Or that was the plan. Instead, officials got so worried about what kind of performance Jones may have, they pulled him from the bout entirely. Attacked before the pay-per-view to explain why he wasn't going to make it, he was sent back down to developmental to, well, try and get better. Nathan took a different path to this though, because he decided that none of it was for him, and he left the company that December. It was the right thing to do, as clearly he wasn't enjoying it, but this must have broken Vince McMahon's heart. On a quiet day, if you stay really silent, you may be able to hear him sob. Number 5, Triple H. Triple H versus Randy Orton in 2009 was great, or mad depending how you want to see it. Their feud had been booked to be utterly over the top in terms of violence, with the Viper especially acting like a sociopath. He had punted Vince and Shane McMahon in the head, as well as RKOing Stephanie out of her shoes. That wasn't enough for the man who his voice is in his head, as he followed that up by kissing Triple H's wife as she lay there unconscious. It was beyond uncomfortable, but that was the point. Hunter had got some revenge by invading Orton's home and throwing him through a window. It was so aggressive no one could believe what may happen at Mania. Surely they were just gonna kill each other. And then we got to the 25th iteration of the show, and they just had a match. Yep, no crazy stipulations, no weapons, no nothing. They didn't even try and beat the hell out of each other and relied on headlocks. It still makes absolutely no sense. All this momentum and the heat were gone in seconds, and this could have just been any other match on the card. It didn't live up to what had come before, and that left us all very tearful. Number 4, Scott Hall. At WrestleMania 10, Scott Hall was part of one of the best matches we'd seen in WWE. The ladder bout with Shawn Michaels changed the game, and we still talk about it today. Things were very different by WrestleMania 18. Coming off a WCW run haunted by personal problems and not being held to task, Hall was not the performer he once was in 2002. Paired against Steve Austin, who had balked at a match with Hulk Hogan as he believed the Hulkster would try and sabotage it, his consolation prize was Scott. This was not a good combo. Like a Happy Meal. On Hall's side, he simply couldn't keep up with the frantic Attitude Era style that WWE had embraced, and in Stone Cold's own words, he was so annoyed he had been reduced to the mid-card, he just didn't really turn up. It was a lose-lose even before the bell had sounded, even if Hall did take one hell of a stunner. When one of the best of all time says his own match wasn't great though, we should all listen and understand why. Slap your head. Number 3, Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan had one job at WrestleMania 6, make sure that the Ultimate Warrior walked away from their match as an equal star to him. Somehow the Immortal One managed to both do that and squander it at the same time. Only Hulk Hogan. The match itself was actually really good as babyface took on babyface, and the sheer reaction from the crowd meant whatever the two were going to do was met with a thunderous reaction. Hulk also had to veer from his usual template because of the situation, and that made it even more interesting. There was a feeling of freshness to the entire thing, until the ending when Hogan went into full politicking mode. As soon as the referee's hand had hit the mat for 3, Hulk jumped off the mat and looked to the skies as if he'd just been told he was gonna die. His expression screamed that what had just happened was a massive fluke and that he couldn't figure it out. As soon as he had calmed down, he made sure to go and get the world title and hand it to the Warrior, so that even during his coronation, all eyes were on the Immortal One. The takeaway was that Hulk was a swell guy and this other dude just happened to be your world champion. Hogan has since spoken about how he planned to do this too, so you can't even take it with a pinch of salt. What really should have happened was the entire focus was on the Ultimate Warrior, but that was not the case, and within a year, everything had gone back to normal. Number 2, Papa Shango. As silly as it may sound today, WWE had big plans for the supernatural voodoo villain Papa Shango. All ready to interfere in the main event at WrestleMania 8, which featured Hulk Hogan and Sid Justice, Mr. Shango missed his cue. That meant after the Hulkster had drilled Sid with a big boot and body slam, nobody was there to stop the 1, 2, 3. A worried Justice kicked out as manager Harvey Wimpleman tried to make the best of the situation by kinda distracting the referee, but this was a mess. Eventually, Papa did turn up looking slightly disheveled, probably because he now realized that none of this made sense. He seemed terrified, likely because he knew what was coming, when he was meant to be a terrifying magic man. From here, we did get back to the plan, which was Sid and Shango beating up Hogan until the returning Ultimate Warrior made the save, but if you know what happened in that feud, well, let's just leave it there. Even Bobby Heenan couldn't keep it in as he screamed, "Everybody here's lost it," and he wasn't wrong. Papa Shango had actually forgotten to turn up. He should have bought a better watch. Number 1, Brock Lesnar. Some thought that at WrestleMania 32, the show-stealing match would be between Brock Lesnar and Dean Ambrose. They had shown some real fire when tangling in the Fastlane 26 main event, which also featured Roman Reigns, and everybody agreed this was the way to go. The Wild Man versus the Beast. It was at the very least going to see Lesnar ruin Ambrose, a guy who had proven time and time again he wasn't exactly worried about his own safety. Unfortunately, we didn't get anything near that. While Dean did bump around as if his life depended on it, Brock was going through the motions. His usual intensity wasn't there, and nobody really knew why. Was he tired, bored, not a fan of Dean? The answer was none of these, as it came out in the wash that Lesnar had actually signed a deal to return to the UFC. Not wanting to risk injury, had decided he would take it as easy as he could. This wasn't really a decent enough excuse given it was flipping WrestleMania, even if you could understand it on one level. It meant this was a bust, and a newly emerged Jon Moxley had no qualms in talking about this match and how Lesnar just wasn't in the mood. What a world we live in where that can be a thing. Know of any other wrestlers who didn't turn up for WrestleMania? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Then head over to whatculture.com and read yourself some more articles, and follow What Culture on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. You can also see more videos like this on What Culture Wrestling, and that's where you are right now. My name is Simon from What Culture, and I will talk to you again soon.